Okay, I think we can begin. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining our session today. My name is Marwa Shille, and I work with Education USA in the West Bank. Today, we have a special guest with us, Carolyn Andrews. She is the Academic Product Manager at Brigham Young University, and she will be covering today's session titled Solutions for International Students Road to US Degree. But before that, I would like to talk a little bit about Education USA. Education USA is a US Department of State network. We have over 430 international student advising centers in 178 countries and territories. Our mission is basically to promote the US higher education system around the world and to help students and people who are interested in pursuing their degree in the United States. It could be a confusing process, for students to choose the best fit universities and colleges for them. And that's why we guide them and help them through the process using the 5 steps to US study, which Caroline today will be discussing some of the components related to these 5 steps. The first step is to research your options. The second one is to finance your studies. The third is to complete your application. And the fourth step, as an international student, you need to apply for your student visa. And the fifth and final step is to prepare for your departure. You can find so much information related to these 5 steps to your study and resources on the Education USA website, which you can see on the screen, educationusa.state.gov. And you can actually find this information divided according to the level of degree. For example, graduate study, undergraduate study, there's a section for community colleges, English language programs, and many others. So please make sure that you check out the Education USA website for more details about the 5 steps to US study. Also, make sure that you follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube for updates about the US higher education system and for resources related to this matter. Also, if you have any questions in the future, please reach out to us. You can contact us via email at ramallah@educationusa.org. Before I hand it over to Caroline, I just have a general question that I would like you to answer about how much do you know about the US higher education system, just to get an idea about our audience today. How much do you know about general information? So you can see the question on the screen. So if you can please just take a few seconds to answer the question. Thank you. And if you are watching us on Facebook, you can write your answer in the comments section as well. I'm not sure if you guys can see the answers, but it's actually a mix. 4 students answered that they are very knowledgeable about the US higher education system. 4 answered somewhat, and 6 answered not at all. So we have a mix of students who know about the US higher education system and others that don't. But today, Caroline will be sharing so much information about the 5 steps to US study, the personal essay, the BYU scholarships that are offered for Palestinian students, and also she will share information about Brigham Young University, and you will have a chance to ask your questions, and Caroline will answer them at the end of the session. So if you have any questions during the session, please type them in the chat box. And now I'm going to hand it over to you, Caroline.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Pleasure to be here with everybody today. Somehow I got muted. It's a morning time for me, so but I think it's the evening for you.
Yes.
So beautiful time to gather. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 5 steps, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on some of them and more time on others. But I thought it would be important, especially with this poll that we've just taken, that a lot of you aren't knowledgeable at all or somewhat knowledgeable. So I think that's really important that you really have a firm understanding of what we have in the US for you. So first of all, step 1, and I look at step 1 as being critical. You need to know what your options are. You need to know where you go, which programs they have, resources that are available, because not all schools offer the same degrees or the same emphases in a specific degree. There may be some researchers that you have become familiar with that you would like to study with. And so that you need to really prepare yourself and really look around at what there is to offer. So we look at, first of all, it's important to understand that there's 6 levels. There's the associate's degree, there's the bachelor's degree, there's the first professional, there's the master, there's the advanced intermediate, and the research doctorate. So there's lots of choices. You'll start out now, depending on the institution that you go to, they may offer an associate's, and some institutions do not offer an associate's, they just offer starting with the bachelor's degree. You've done a great thing with finding your educational advising center in your country. EducationUSA is fantastic to prepare you for this education that you have ahead of you. And they will be able to provide all of the advice and help that you'll need for studying the things in the US that you need to become familiar with. You need to navigate, and you need to be able to find and compare colleges by location and type and programs and majors. So you'll want to figure out too what you might be interested in. Some of you already know, and some of you don't quite know what you'd like to do for your future. And that's okay. This is a time in your life when you're finding that out. You're looking at your interests and you're deciding, do I want to do this, or do I want to do that? It's a good idea to be thinking about things like that right now. It's a good idea for you to be exploring different professions and figure out, is that for me? Some professions sound really fun, but they're not for me. And I'm glad that there are other people that can do them, because I need those services as well. But I'm cut out for other things. And so that's important for me to know just me and what where my talents lie. Then there's the Student and Exchange Visitor Program with a certified school. You verify if your US school that you are interested and if it's certified. So with everything though, you need to be careful that even a US college, that they have proper certification. That's going to be something that you're going to want to really be aware of. And then you'll want to also find out from other international students. Read about their experiences, contact them, ask them about their experiences studying in the US and at their particular universities. That will be important for you as well. We have the next slide, please. Okay, so presumably you have figured out where you want to go to college. Now you need to figure out how to finance this. The US government does not provide loans or scholarships for students, so there are 4 ways that you can pay for it. There's of course your home country education authorities that you'll want to figure out with. There's the international admissions office at the schools that you're interested in, and you can contact them to see if you're eligible. There's scholarships and grants from private foundations and businesses and nonprofits. So you'll want to contact your government to see if there are any of those things that are particularly applicable to your situation. And then there's US government exchange programs that can also, with the Fulbright program, that can help you as you're trying to figure out how to finance your studies. Next slide, please. Okay, so this one I want to spend a little bit more time on because this is really important. You need to figure out which universities you'd like to apply to. You may only want to apply to one, you may want to apply to a few. But that's the step that you need to take right now when you're looking at step 3 is which institutions are you applying to? You need to figure out some things like when is the deadline for applications and what is required to apply. There are, some of them will have some stipulations. So some universities require standardized tests or the TOEFL, being an international student. And if you have a foreign diploma and credit at an institution from your country, you'll want to be sure that the state you're going to you want to be sure that they recognize your credentials and requirements. And so sometimes that requires that you have academic evaluations done on your coursework and degrees and professional licenses. Now, I think most of you are high school students, so you know, some of that may not be very applicable to you, but if you do have some higher education background or degree or coursework that you would like to transfer, that will require an evaluation. Next slide, please. So I just want to spend just 1 minute on transferring courses within the United States. So many schools have articulation guides that show how a course will be received. And US schools have begun to be more open to transferred credit. So taking courses at other schools can give students broad exposure to information. Courses don't have to be evaluated by third-party organization to have it transferred. So that's different than when you're transferring credit internationally. So this is when you're actually in the US. And so the bottom line is you usually need to know your target school and whether or not they'll use credit before you start the class. So this is really important information because you may decide to go to a community college. And as you have credit from a community college, that's a 2-year institution, then you will need to transfer your credits to a 4-year institution if you would like to get a bachelor's degree. And so transferring within the US, although it does not cost money, you do need to be able to be sure that those credits are transferable. So you can get on collegetransfer.net and you can see on there that you can look at one institution and see if another institution will take that credit. So that's important information to remember as you go along, deciding what where you're taking your credits. So let's go on to the next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about test prep strategies, just a couple for ACT and SAT standardized tests. Depending on your institution that you're going to, they can require one or one of these, the ACT or the SAT. And I understand that you're probably more familiar with the SAT. And they're similar in nature, where they are just general testing. But there are some ways that you can prepare for that. And I would suggest that you take some time ahead of time and really prepare well for the standardized tests that you'll be taking. And again, you will need to find out and have that date when the test is available in your country, and then you'll be able to take it, but you'll have to be sure that your results will be available for the time that your application is going in. So that's a little bit of planning there. So you need to be able to look at the date that your application is due, and then figure out when the deadline is that you'll have to take the SAT or the ACT. So when you're preparing for these standardized tests, use a test manual. So there are some companies, the Princeton Review, for example, where they use, where they have put out a test manual. So you get the test manual for the tests that you'll be taking, and then read the material and work the practice tests. We've used manuals by Barron's and the Princeton Review for our course. Learn in advance. Before you test, learn all of the critical definitions, formulas, concepts that appear in common questions. So again, this is important because sometimes, and this is an American test, sometimes terminology is different. So you actually know what it is, but you use a different term. And so it's important for you to understand the differences of what they're asking so that you're prepared when you get to the test and you take it, that you are very familiar with what they're asking. One of the most important things you can do is just practice taking the test. So there are several websites and there are even in these books, these test manuals that you can purchase, that you'll be able to take practice tests. Now, practice tests help you prepare. They also help decrease test anxiety. They help you with pacing on time tests, because that's important to remember, that you will be timed, that you will not have a whole bunch of time, however much time you want, but you'll be timed on each section. And so you need to be sure that you're able to pace yourself properly. And so again, time tests can help you do that ahead of time. Let your experience, and these practice tests let you experience the different instructions for different sections of the tests, and gives you experience with the question types that you'll face on the test. And again, when you know the question types, then you can start learning about more about how you answer those types of questions and prepare that way. It will do a whole lot for you in for the time that you actually sit to take that exam. You also might know that you can take the test more than once. So if you take it once and you don't do as well as you would like to have, you can take it again. But again, you have to remember the deadline for the college application. So you want to leave enough time that if you need to take it again or want that option of taking it again, that you have that time available before the deadline. Make use of online resources. There are lots of online resources available on different websites for the ACT and the SAT. And they have tips for addressing questions of the type that are on that test. So again, a great way to prepare. And then the final tip that for these test strategies that I'd like to offer to you is to be prepared and organized. Create a schedule that allows you enough time to prepare for the test in a continuous manner so that you will not be but it will not be a time burden. So being well prepared is the best way to reduce test anxiety. So again, if there are 5 sections of a test, plan out your study time before and make sure that you have adequate time to prepare to take the test. And so that will, for many of you, that will be right now. You should be preparing right now and practicing and then signing up to take it if you're planning on applying for next year. Can I have the next slide, please? And we also have the TOEFL to consider. So these, again, there are practice tests for the TOEFL. And when you're prepared for the TOEFL, you'll almost always aim for a specific score. During your TOEFL preparation period, you can know if you're nearing your objective by taking practice tests. So there's that practice tests again. Look at how beneficial that is to just keep practicing and taking these tests. That way, again, you'll get a definite feeling for that test environment that is going to be different than an SAT test environment. The question types will be different. And again, that will help you prepare. And the constraints that you'll face on that test. So again, practice, practice, practice. Now, even native English speakers build their vocabularies by reading. So can you imagine when you're learning a second language, read every day? That will be critical for you as well. So the more broadly you read, the more exposure you get to a variety of concepts and vocabulary. So take the time to build your reading skills and your comprehension skills. So it's important for you to read, to stop, and to think about what you read and think if you understand what you have read. So that is going to really help for the TOEFL. And then listen to podcasts. There are a lot of English language talk radio online, and there's whether you like news or comedy or you know, a variety of different things. It's all out there. And if you just listen, you start hearing the language and it becomes more of a regular occurrence for you, and it's easier for you to grasp the language that way. So I encourage you also to just take that piece of advice and just listen to podcasts and read every day. So that's some things that I would recommend for preparing for the TOEFL. Next slide, please. Okay, so step 4, applying for your visa. There's student visas. You need to learn about the different types of student visas, how to apply, the fees, and the required documents. And then, of course, you need to prepare for your visa appointment. So you have to pass an interview with your U.S. Embassy or consulate in your area. So find out what you need to do for that appointment and prepare for that. There'll be many people that can help you with that and ask for advice. Next slide, please. And then, of course, comes the time for departure. You need to prepare for your departure. It's not just that you want to pack the night before you leave and jump on a plane, but you really want to take time to prepare for this departure. So there are several different things that you need to look into. So how to navigate the U.S. immigration system. So find out how to get started, what happens when you arrive, how long you can stay, and what is required to leave the U.S. You'll want to learn about life in the U.S., learn about the American holidays in the States and other useful information. And that will depend again on where you're going. There are different customs and norms for different areas of the United States. So that will be another important thing for you to do once you have made your decision on where you want to go. You also need to look into training opportunities in the United States. International students and new graduates can attend on-the-job training in the US as well. And so you'll need to become familiar with the laws associated with that and be able to take advantage of this training that can also help you with your academic studies. You'll want to look into how you might be able to work as an international student at the school you're attending in the US. So that is another area of just figuring out what you can do. Foreign visitors driving in the US, get some quick facts about short-term visitors, students and residents, and about driving, being able to drive. Do you need a new license? So they're just some things that are different. Income taxes. So sometimes international students need to pay income taxes. So you'll have to figure out if you're in that category. And so many times your institution that you're going to, you can contact the international students and they'll be able to give you additional information as well. And of course, English is a second language. You'll want to make sure that English, you're improving it with your basic reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. That's very important. Next slide, please. And one of the reasons, of course, that it's very important is, and it starts out very early, is your application. Many of you will be required, because most institutions require an essay. And sometimes they give you a question and they just want you to respond to it. Now you want to stand out. You want to be unforgettable. They want to look at your essay and say, we need this student on our campus. And so there's some things that you can do for that as well. So, and I've provided a few tips for you here. So choose something important to you to focus on, and don't recount, reflect. So don't just tell a story, but reflect on how that was important, how that changed you. Talk about what you learned from that experience. There is a balance with being funny. So be careful with, you don't want too much humor in it, but you can have that balance. Start early and write multiple drafts. So this is something that that's a great tip for even when you're in college, and actually even when you're in high school. How many times do you hear your parents say, do your homework, start early. If you have a project due, start early. And the reason we start early is because it gives us more time to prepare, more time to go through our artifact and to make it better. That gives you more time to have time to research and to look more into a certain aspect. So that's important that you start early and write multiple drafts. The more you write it, the better it will become. Don't just repeat things from other parts of your application. So remember, like, they'll ask you different things in different areas of your application. So if you've already talked about a certain aspect in one part of your application, you don't want to write about it in your essay. You want to show them a different dimension of you. So again, that will be important for you to be very familiar with the application that you're writing and what you're going to use in the different pieces of the application. That takes some planning. It's not just that you sit down and just write it out, but you'll really want to think through what examples are best in each of the areas and what example is your strongest for your essay. Make sure you answer the question. Now that sounds like a really strange thing to say, but I've been a university teacher for probably 25 years. And I still have students, when I ask a question on an exam, that they don't answer the question, or they answer part of the question. But there's a whole question to answer. And you'll want to make sure that you answer the question. Look at what they're asking. If you don't quite understand, talk to some people. Say, talk to your parents. What do you think this means? What should I be talking about in this? What do they want to know from me? So you want to be very clear on what the question is, and then you want to be very clear that you have answered the whole question. And then after you have written it and you've gone through all of these steps, ask a teacher or an advisor or a friend to look over your essay, to read it and to edit your essay, to give you feedback. Feedback is important. That's something that you can use to improve yourself. It's not meant to hurt or diminish you, but it's good to build you and to perfect what you're doing. So those are some really great tips for writing an unforgettable essay. Next slide, please. But I want you to really think now, I have this other thing to really help you understand what the level of things that a US university would be looking for in that essay. So you'll want to be thinking about examples of your drive, your self-motivation. They want to read about the downtimes when a student has failed. So when have you failed? And that may actually be something that you think, why would they want to know when I have failed? Well, they want to know how you have failed so that you have been able to overcome that. They want to know about your intellectual curiosity. So do you like to learn independently away from the classroom? How curious are you? How involved are you in your education? They want to know if you take initiative and you don't accept status quo. So you don't just do whatever, but you take initiative. So you're asked to read something, you not only read it, but you've outlined it, you've studied it, you've even thought of some examples of how that applies to your life. So taking initiative is really important. Contribution. Have you made a contribution that has improved your community or your peers or your school or your organization? So are you someone that is just thinking of yourself, or do you get out there and really make the world a better place? And so that's another area that they would really be interested in. And the last example I thought to share with you is diversity of experiences. So how can your experience add to the college? So you're an international student. You have experiences that no other student on that campus has had. And what do you have to add? How would that benefit their college? How would you make it a better place? I know, so many of you, the US may be your first time, your first experience coming for school. Now, I didn't actually grow up in the US. I'm Canadian, but now I live in the US. So I was an international student, and it was very different for me, even though I live very close to the US. I mean, we're just the border, just over the border, but there were differences and there were diversity. I had a whole diverse background that people weren't familiar with. And I was able to contribute because I had diversity. I was different. I could share a different point of view. And when we share different points of view, That's a beautiful thing, that we can all learn from each other, and we are all enriched by learning from each other and from our diverse backgrounds. And so share that in your application essay. Tell them how you are. And then when you go to the US and to an institution to study, don't be afraid to share your experiences, because it's beautiful, it's different, and nobody wants the same. You know, we want different life. We want to learn and to broaden our horizons. Now, I thought I would also, I found a template for a narrative essay. And this template will kind of take you through some steps of how to write an application essay, which is more of the narrative way to write it. So I thought that would be helpful. If it is for you, then that is wonderful. But I think you'll have access to these slides later. If not, we'll have a way to just post this on Facebook. And so you'll be able to access that. Next slide, please. Okay, so many of you may be familiar with the Brigham Young University Jerusalem Center. And we have a Palestinian scholarship, and it's offered by the Jerusalem Center for students from the West Bank, Gaza area. And it's awarded to 3 students each year. There's tuition, room and board, books, and living expenses for up to 9 semesters. And then you're free to pursue any bachelor's degree at the university. You can be part of a small, vibrant community of Brigham Young University students from the Middle East and make friends in your dorms, classes, and major. So I just thought I would spotlight that for you, just in case Brigham Young University, it was an area that, or a school that you would like to attend. So we do have some Palestinian students, especially because of the scholarship. So at any given time, there's probably at least 12 on our campus. But our campus, again, is a very diverse campus because we have students coming from all over the world to our campus. So ours is maybe more of a diverse campus than some others, but that's there for you to consider as well. Next slide, please. So I thought I'd just share with you the BYU enrollments. We have, I'm associated with independent study, and the independent study is a little bit different than the other, the university itself. So independent study are just online classes that you can sign up to take. And those online classes are available 12 months a year. You can sign up today and start the course today. And so this is a very popular program that we have. There's no application to BYU. There's also no degree associated with independent study, but we have the ability to transfer that credit to many other institutions. And so students do that all the time. But we have enrollments from 73 countries. So that's something to consider, that even as you're living at home, you have access to these courses. And so when you know about an institution that you will be going to, you might want to stay home and still take some courses. And you can do that through independent study and then transfer them. Next slide, please. So we have 225 university online courses. There's open admission, so you don't have to be a matriculated student. There's no application fee or enrollment fee. You can enroll anytime. You have a full 12 months to complete a semester course. There's free tutoring. There's course scholarships available. And when you're finished the course, you have a BYU transcript. So, and that transcript is as if you attended BYU. So it doesn't differentiate that it was an online class. So that is another benefit. And Brigham Young University is one of the prestigious universities in the USA. We also have an online high school. We have lots of 280 online classes, open admission for any course. There's no registration fee, but you start the course right after registration. Again, same free tutoring, course scholarships, and home study program transcript. So there is available through the online high school to get a US high school degree. So that's something that may be probably not applicable to you because you're already in high school and probably nearing the end of high school, but maybe you know someone else that might be interested in that. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have a special website just for international students. And again, this is for independent study, not Brigham Young University, but Brigham Young University has if you're going to go to attend that the university, they also have an international students area that they would be able to talk to you, but this is just for the online courses. So I'd encourage you to look at that and to look at what we have for international students. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have, again, so many courses available that some of you may actually decide to stay home you graduate and you want to stay home for a little bit. You don't want to come right away, or you look at the cost of coming and maybe you want to do something similar to a community college, but you could do that online from your home. Similar to what we would call a 2+2 program in the United States. You take 2 years at home or at a community college and transfer it to university. So that's something that you're able to do through independent study, and then you'll have that transcript. You can also, if you're waiting for a visa, you can get started on your courses right away before you go to even a different institution. There are certain courses that you will need to take regardless of whatever institution you go to. We call that general education. And so there's some that are just, some that are at every institution. And so we have that online and you could actually do that from home while you're waiting for your visa. There's some people only have 3 years of a degree and they need a 4th year. And so that's another way that they can use that. And then online pre-graduate courses. So some people want to come to the US for graduate programs, and this way they're able to get some prerequisites done. So when you get on the website, you're able to see, for example, the one that's probably the most applicable for you is the 2+2 program. And you'd be able to click on that and see what courses are suggested. Next slide, please. So the BYU online courses are inexpensive compared to many institutions for the tuition. So we're looking at $199 per credit hour. The courses are interactive media, there's video assignments, digital textbooks, online proctoring, and academic advising that we've all put in place for international students that may want to take these courses and transfer to a different institution. So we hope to be able to help you in the way that you would best prepare for where you are going to attend. I thought I'd also mention that we have a test prep course for the TOEFL through independent study. And we also have a test prep course for the ACT, which would also, there's many similarities. There's some differences with the SAT as well, but that is a course that you could take again to help prepare you for your applications. And I think that leads us to our questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing this information with our students. We received a couple of questions. If you guys have any questions, just please type them in the chat box, or if you are watching us on Facebook, please type your questions in the comments section. So first, we have a question from Sarah. She is asking, what do students do when they are not in class? What is life like on the weekends?
Great question. So I think it probably depends on what you like to do. So some people like to stay home and relax. Other people like to get out and socialize with friends. And so it's a time that usually people are more relaxed. So where I live, so I live in Western United States, and we have mountains all over. And so a lot of people go hiking and do a lot of things with nature. In the winter, we have what we call the best snow in the world. So people like to go skiing on the weekends. So there's lots of things, but visiting with people, shopping, going to parties, hanging out is something that a lot of college students do, hanging out in other people's apartments. So the dorm rooms or the complexes, they just all hang out and have fun. So that's kind of, and of course you're preparing for the next week. So you're doing your laundry, and you're also doing your assignments. You're looking ahead and making sure that you're prepared.
Thank you. We have another question from Maisa. Does BYU offer jobs for international students?
Yes, there are jobs on our campus, and you would work through the international student area, and they would be able to advise you on what kind of jobs and when you can work, and because there are certain regulations. And so but that is a possibility that our international students do work on campus.
Okay, another question from Sarah. What academic programs are very strong at your institution? Is acceptance into certain academic programs more competitive for international students?
Okay, so Brigham Young University is a very competitive university to get into, to start. So about half of our applicants are admitted. So then we have many different disciplines, and some of them require that you apply to get into that major. Some of them don't. But those that require you to apply, there are some that are very difficult. So our business school is very revered. And because of that, the Marriott School of Business is difficult. There are many programs within the Marriott School to apply for, and those are all competitive, very competitive. And it's a competitive group that even got into BYU who are then competing for those spaces. So it can be very challenging. Our communications program is challenging to get into as well. Again, they win lots of national awards, and so people want to major in communications, in advertising, or PR or journalism. And so that will take some planning for as well. But there are other programs that don't require you to get into, to apply to study. And yet those programs are very rigorous as well and very revered in the US. So don't worry too much about that.
Thank you. We have a question from Hala. She is saying that she will be finishing school next year. Should I start making the applications?
Yeah, so what you want to do, that's a great question. If you're finishing in a year, this is perfect. So right now, you should know where you're thinking of going. Start looking at the different schools that are available to you and decide. Maybe you want to just apply to one, or maybe you want to apply to a few. So look at them, look at what dates that you have to submit your application, and then look at what standardized tests you'll need to take. Look at what dates you'll need to take those tests by. Do you need to kind of get a big calendar and just start writing these things out and planning it out, and kind of, if this is where I'm at, you want to just back up and go. So you've got a year, but that year is going to be a very busy year. So get going now.
Another question from Usaid, how to apply for the Palestinian BYU scholarship?
Okay, I can get that contact information, but it's with someone in the Jerusalem Center.
Yes.
So I will give you that information so that you can send that out to the group.
Yes. And they usually actually, the BYU office in Jerusalem, they usually announce it on their Facebook page or in local newspaper like Al-Quds newspaper. And they usually share it with us, and we share it with our students who are interested in applying to BYU.
Wonderful.
Yes. Also, Hala is saying, is it too early to do the SAT test in August? And she is a senior.
I think that's probably perfect timing, because a lot of our applications are due Brigham Young University's applications are due in November. That's the first round of applications. So in order to apply in November, that means you have to have all of your test scores. So definitely take it in August.
We have a question from Usaid. I have been to the US before, and I lived there for about 10 months on an exchange program while going to a high school there. Do I still need to take the TOEFL test?
I believe so, but you'll want to verify with each of the institutions that you're applying to whether or not they will require that. Most probably will. And the other thing that you'll want to see is what score do you need at those institutions.
Yes, Sarah is asking, will the COVID-19 crisis affect the financial aid or scholarships that US universities and colleges offer for international students?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it's going to depend on the institution. Many institutions are struggling right now, but others are not. And so I would say that your best advice, the best advice I can give you, is to contact the institutions that you're planning on applying to and asking them some specific questions about what scholarships they have available, and if they anticipate any of those going away.
Yes, Abdul Rahman is asking, does the university offer a cyber security degree?
Yes, yes. In fact, that is a fairly new degree to us, and it is a great program. It's in our College of Engineering.
Yes, and Khalid is asking, how can someone stay in the USA after they finish college?
That I don't know. Well, I mean, for me, I got married and I married an American, so that's how I stayed. But there are, I mean, I know you have to apply for other visas, and it depends. Some areas there's a lottery, and so it'll depend on what, and it also depends on who's in the government at that time too. So the laws change. So I would just be to find out now and to prepare, but know that those laws can change as well.
Yes, that was our last question for today's session. Thank you so much, Caroline. But before we end our session, I want to ask another questions. I'm going to put another poll. If you guys can please answer the question. Again, after you have heard all of the information that Caroline shared today, did today's session improve your understanding of the 5 steps to US study? Yes, yes, we're getting so many yeses. Perfect. So we got 11 answers. They said yes, and 1 answer somewhat. We did not get any no. Thank you so much for answering the question. We just want to see, you know, I'm sure even if you know about the US higher education system before you joined our session today, I'm sure that you have learned something today with us. Another question that we would like to ask you, you know, what topics that you would like to see covered in future virtual sessions as well. So if you can just take a few seconds to answer the question, please. Okay, so we have different answers. You know, some students want to learn about the scholarships and financial aid, the common application, researching colleges and universities, application deadlines, and other topics as well. Thank you so much for answering this question. It will help us more when we want to plan our future sessions with our colleagues at different US higher education institutions. Again, Caroline, thank you so much for taking your time to do this session today. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure that you keep on checking your emails and our Facebook page for any upcoming events that you might want to join as well. Have a nice evening or have a nice day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Do I need to give you something?
No, thank you. Unless if you want to say anything.
No, so but you have the contact information for the Palestinian Scholarship? You
Yes.
don't need to.
No, we have it, and I will share the presentation with our students. So the links and the resources that you actually had on the slides, they will have them as well.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a nice day. Bye.